Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Books and Mortar podcast with me, your host Brizia, where we talk about the books that build us. So this one is called Book People by Paige Nick. I saw this book advertised on Instagram by the publisher Pan Macmillan, and I thought, hey, that looks interesting. I should give it a read. And I am thrilled that I did, because what a gem. I absolutely love this book from beginning to end. It's a book about readers, reviews, and authors, and the very real concept of cancel culture. It got a 4.2 out of 5 rating on Goodreads, and it's well deserved. If you are any kind of reader, this book is for you. So let's read the synopsis at the back, right? Norma Jacobs is your average accountant running a book club on Facebook and living quietly with her gamer boyfriend in London. Except for the part where she's being threatened by a deranged author and questioned by the police about attempted murder. All just as she started a new job as the only 42-year-old intern in the history of publishing. Harry Shields is a crime writer desperate to hit the big time when a negative review of his latest book on Norma's page results in him having a spectacular public meltdown. He gets cancelled, his events get cancelled, and before you can say, author behaving badly, he's plotting revenge and stalking his nemesis. By the time Harry's gone viral and Norma's given up trying to stop him, the online book club has over 100,000 rowdy members, and the comment section is a literal riot. Entertaining until one member ends up in a coma. It's a bit of a long synopsis, isn't it? But it sounded like a book that I'd like to read. So Paige is South African, and it's the first time I think that I've read a satirical book by a South African, actually. So thanks, Paige. So Norma is being questioned by the police about the behavior of an author who's part of this book club that she runs on Facebook. It's called the Good Book Appreciation Society. A member wrote a really scathing review of his book, and he just, as it says, he had a meltdown. And then this member ended up in a coma following a hit and run. So, of course, Harry Shields is a suspect, right? And this is how his 3-week spiral begins. So Harry Shields has written 2 crime thrillers, right? Or literary crime thrillers, as he likes to call them, whatever that means. And he loves to tout his books on this page. So I'm going to call it GBAS, which is Good Book Appreciation Society, because it's a mouthful to say every time. So he touts his books on GBAS, and this is how he does it, right? Just to give you an example of like just how blatant he is, I can't deal. All right, so Harry Shields, book review, The Dangerous Path by Anthony P. Harker. The Dangerous Path has a compelling plot with vivid characters and themes that feel more like current events than fiction. This debut is that rare thing, a great sprawling American novel, the kind that only pops up every decade or so. If you've already read The Dangerous Path and are looking for something similar, but with a British twist, I think you'll love my second novel, Once on a Tuesday, published by Victory Books. Both share ambitious writing and a compelling page-turning plot. I'd say read them both. I laughed when I read this, right? Because it's so blunt. Like he's not even subtle about it. Like he doesn't even try. So these are some of the comments that he got on this post, right? Chris Colt, I loved The Dangerous Path. Thanks for the heads up. I will look out for your novel at Harry Shields. Ruth Bernstein, it was a bit too testosterone-filled for me, but if you like that kind of thing, more power to you. Chris Colt, at Ruth Bernstein. Are you one of those feminist types? Gotta say, I'm a fan of a bit of testosterone. I'm looking forward to the read. Ruth Bernstein, at Chris Colt. Are you even serious? I'm not going to waste my breath on you. Geneva Fulverton, at Harry Shields. It feels like you wrote that entire review of a great American novel just so you could punch your own book as a great British novel. Oh, to have the confidence of a middle-aged white male author. And you, at Chris Colt, I don't even know where to start. Shanti Kumar. Has the world not moved on from this echo chamber aspiration to write the great American novel? How dull and muscular. Honestly, I'm way more interested in a great Serbian novel or a great African, Indian or Middle Eastern one. Chris Colt. But then you would say that, at Shanti Kumar. Frida Kruger has reported this comment. Sylvia Strain. Even if you say so yourself, at Harry Shields. Felicitas Gonzalez. Self-promo alert. Shireen Worcestershire Watts. Is it fiction or non-fiction? So... And this is how the book goes, right? So there's posts on the Facebook page, the GBAS page, and then there are comments. And it is just, it's unique. It's brilliant. So I've seen authors like punting their own books. And if you're independently published, I completely understand this because there's no marketing working for you. So, hey, we must really support our indie authors. Harry Shields, though, has a publisher, and it's his second novel. And he does, in fact, have a marketing team. So I felt he came off like a little bit desperate, and I wouldn't read his books, honestly, like just because he did that. So he does this on the page regularly, right? This wasn't the first time. So Harry's waiting on a call from his publisher because he sent in a new manuscript that he's written. And he's also quite excited because he's up for this literary award, and he's going to be a part of an author panel at a literary festival in London. So he's got like quite a few things going on. And I'd say, like, from what seemed to me, he's at most a mediocre author, and that's not bad for a mediocre author. So the second chapter gives you like some more insight into his personality, and it's not great. He's really self-absorbed, and he thinks he's a better writer than I'm sure he actually is. So, for example, if I have to show you what his personality is like, he had to make sure he thanked all the right people when he won his award. Those Oscar speeches often went viral when the actor thanked the great Lord above, or their agent, bull terrier, giant koi, Zen master, astral reader, personal trainer, mother and co-stars, but then forgot to thank their spouse. It was practically legal grounds for divorce in LA. Harry wouldn't let that happen. His speech would be powerful but funny, and charming and endearing, but also self-deprecating. No one liked a winner who took themselves too seriously. Striking the right note wasn't going to be easy. So he's convinced that he's going to win, right? Even though his last book wasn't selling very well. But like, okay, fine, let's be optimistic. So he goes on to talk about another book that he thought was exceptional, and he decides to review it on the GBAS page to distract himself from writing his speech because he's having trouble with it. So he logs out of Facebook, and then he logs back in as one of his alter egos, Gail A. So I know that this is a real thing, right? That one person might have like many accounts under different names on social media platforms, but it still freaked me out like completely that he does it so casually and he's so okay with it, And it was just the idea that you're speaking to someone, but they're not actually who you think they are. Like, I'd rather like talk to ChatGPT, and he's like, I know it's a robot. So this is what he writes, right, as Gail A. And then remember, he loved this book. So Gail A. This is not a new book, but I've been so busy working on my MBA. I'm ashamed to admit that I only just got around to reading The Unveiling by Akel Abus. This book has won dozens of awards, has been lauded by critics and praised by readers the world over, and is regularly referred to as one of the greatest classics of our time. It came out in 1992 and was subsequently banned in several countries, and the author received numerous death threats that forced him out of public life for over 2 decades. Honestly, I can see why the author went into hiding. If I'd written a load of rubbish like this, I also wouldn't want to show my face around the literary water cooler. Perhaps we were so starved of political and social insight then that we overlooked the technicalities of good writing. Today, we certainly expect more from our pacing. This was sluggish and stylistically flawed. I get what an important topic this is. However, this feels like a case of the Emperor's New Clothes. A few big names said it was great, and the rest of the world just nodded their heads in time to the music. But I believe a critical reader should be able to put subject matter aside, stand up, and be objective. The writing was poor, and I struggled to make it to the end of this plodding, bloated, boring, overhyped piece of schlock. Comments. Ruth Bernstein. I haven't read the book, but I applaud your honesty at Gail A. So often people are scared to be truthful about a book that's won an award, or a book that's had critical acclaim, or a lot of press. We need more honest reviewers out there, like yourself. Avukile Chingitwa. Precisely. We aren't sheep, we're readers. Shireen Worcestershire Watts. What a weird comparison. Sheep can't even read. Shanti Kumar. What is wrong with you all? When this book was banned, Abus was scared for his life. He and his family had to leave their home and go into hiding for years. Dozens of people went to jail just for reading it. Many lost their livelihood, some their lives, trying to defend the right to freedom of speech over this book. It might just be one of the most important works of our time, highlighting the plight of people forced to live under the brutal rule of dictators and tyrants. At Gail A, your review is more of an indictment of you than it is of this author. Harry Shields. Having a book banned and getting death threats can't be easy, but I bet the PR does wonders for book sales. Geneva Fulverton. You wish you had death threats at Harry Shields? You wouldn't be so keen on them if you got a few and had people coming after you. Shanti Kumar. At Harry Shields. Your comment minimizes the trauma thousands of courageous people are still forced to endure to this day. Those brave souls whose lives are threatened for whistleblowing, taking a brave political stance while under violent regimes, or protecting those more vulnerable than themselves. I don't think it's something to take so lightly. Harry Shields, shoot me down if you want, but as an author myself, I would rather people were offended by my book, talked about it, burnt it, even threatened me over it, as opposed to ignoring it. Shanti Kumar, oh, you're an author, are you? None of us would have known since you haven't told us here already 1,000 times. Congratulations again for being an author. Geneva Fulverton, if at Harry Shields carries on like this, at Shanti Kumar, he might just get the death threats he's always dreamed of. Shoot me down, indeed. So, this is only one of his virtual alter egos, right? And I think this kind of, to me, it shows what kind of person Harry Shields is. Like, he's a little unhinged, right? He's also very, very insecure. So then the POV shifts to Norma. I love Norma, right? She's such a likable character. She's a South African who's moved to London, although you never say that she was South African. There's only one ya in the book and not a single shame. Like, I mean, who even are you? But she's just minding her own business, trying to like get her foot through the door into the literary world and live her dream. I feel her, right? So she's the admin of the GBAS Facebook page, so she's able to delete posts and comments that she feels contravenes the rules of the group. She doesn't get any money out of this, obviously, as her boyfriend Steve constantly reminds her. Steve's an idiot. He's a writer who quit his job to finish his book, his first book, which he's seemingly never going to finish because he sits around and plays PlayStation and smokes weed all day. This means that he has no income and Norma is the sole earner, and this has been going on for a while. Honestly, I don't know why she puts up with him. He's not even nice to her. Like, they're not nice to each other. On this day, though, Norma drops a bomb on him, right? She's written a book and she asks him to read it and let her know if it's any good. So I didn't think that this was the best idea on her part because like she knows that he's struggling with this book, and would he even give her a fair review because he's obviously bitter, right, when she told him. So he reads the book and obviously he tells her that he doesn't think that she should publish it because it would be embarrassing for her and it's just not publishable. And it's got some good points, but it's just not going to happen. And of course she's crushed, right? But I don't know why she takes him seriously. She should have really gotten someone else to read it. Second bomb, she tells him that she's quit her well-paying job as an accountant and she's going to start this next to nothing paid internship at a publishing house. So she said that she's always wanted to be in publishing and this is how she's going to make it happen. She has some savings and they can live off that while she builds herself up. She's a very nice girlfriend, eh? But do you think that she's nuts? Like at age 42, like quitting a stable job and opting for an internship to live out your dream of being in publishing? I would, hey, I would do it. Like I would do it at a drop of a hat. It would like be a dream come true to be in publishing. Then it's Steve's turn to drop a bomb, right? And it's like, it's an atomic one. He tells her that he's coming to some money problems. He's been gambling online because it was research for his book, right? And things got a little bit out of hand. So long story short, he's maxed out Norma's credit card. And needless to say, she is pissed. She's already resigned from her job and she can't go back. And she's starting an internship where she's going to get paid like £1,950 a month, which in South African rands is actually almost 47,000 rand. And I'm telling you that no intern in South Africa earns that amount of money. But I suppose like for London, that's obviously a low salary. So mirrored by the fact that her two colleagues are kids in their 20s living with their parents because they can't afford to move out, kind of puts it like into perspective. But this is the straw that breaks the relationship's back, right? So Norma is unfortunately responsible for the debt because he used her credit card. So the idiot kind of gets off scot-free here. So after this, okay, let's catch up with Harry, right? So for me, this book is more about Harry than Norma, and even though the POV switch between them, but I'm going to focus more on Harry in this review because for me, it's more about him. And this is how it all begins. A member on the GBAS page asks for a book recommendation because she's going on a long-haul flight. And as a result of the discussion, she decides to give Harry's book Once on a Tuesday a try. So she doesn't like it and she reviews it on the page. But before I go there was an interesting thread that started on the page. And it was something that I've also thought about before. It's negative reviews. Not bad reviews, negative reviews. And this is what the member has to say. I recently read a book that was not for me at all. These things happen. It's a title that has been well received here, but I ended up putting it down after 147 pages, which is unheard of for me. Usually, once I'm that far in, I persevere. Call it misplaced loyalty. Ever since I put it down, I've been wondering whether to post a review about it here or not. You see, I would never lie about my experience as a reader. So if I were to post about it, I would have to say negative things. And the author is on this page too, so that adds a double layer of restraint and caution for the reviewer. because there's this move now globally to keep these kinds of honest, or as many would call them, bad reviews to ourselves and only post good reviews. We don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, they say. There's enough negativity in the world already, they say. Everyone should get a trophy just for entering, they say. Blah, blah, blah. But surely not posting honest impressions of a book does a disservice to this community and ultimately to the author and publisher too. Why are we holding back in order to spare an author's feelings? Of course it takes work to write a book, but it takes work to run a hotel or a restaurant too, and that doesn't stop us jumping onto TripAdvisor with 1,000 opinions. I even believe an honest negative review benefits the publisher. In terms of the technical, if they know the book is riddled with errors or the typesetting in the Kindle version has a glitch, they can fix the tech or solve it in the next print run. And in terms of the content, by censoring ourselves, do we not underestimate our fellow club members' ability to look past one reader's personal tastes and find an element of the story that interests them? To make an educated decision for themselves. Just because I didn't like a book doesn't mean it's bad, it just means I didn't like it. In the same way that just because I don't like pineapple on pizza doesn't mean it's disgusting, even though it clearly is. I agree with the concept of a negative review. I know that some people only leave reviews for books that they've loved, and I guess that's okay, but I also want to hear about what you didn't like. And just to put it out there, just because you didn't like it doesn't mean that I'm not going to read it. Maybe because it sounds like a book that I might enjoy, or because I want to see if it's really as bad as you say it is, right? So while some people only leave positive reviews, I will leave positive and negative reviews. And honestly, I can't even say that I have that many negative reviews. Like out of 30 books a year, I would probably say there's like 2 of them that I didn't really enjoy. So I don't know, how do you feel about leaving negative reviews in the public domain? Have you ever done it? Have you ever received any backlash? So back to the negative review of Harry's book. A lady named Edna Moulton left a review on the GBAS page, right? And this was of his book now specifically. And this is how it goes. Edna Moulton. Once on a Tuesday is the second novel by Harry Shields, and as you've probably seen here numerous times, it comes highly recommended by the author himself, no less. What a load of twaddle. Absolute rubbish. Abhorrent. Useless. Who's publishing this nonsense? I feel like my dog could have written a better book, and he doesn't even have opposable thumbs or a laptop. And he likes licking his own balls. It was the most pretentious attempt at a novel I've ever read, and I've read Jack Kerouac's entire stream of consciousness. Let's not even talk about the errors. This couldn't possibly have been edited professionally. And then there's the cover. Amateur hour. I googled to see if this book has been self-published. It hadn't, which surprised me as it smacks of it. Ever since I gave up on it 50 pages from the end, I couldn't be bothered to finish it, too thin on plot. I've wondered who the author slept with to get this utter dross published, and this is Shields' second novel? So assuming that the author would have gotten better at his craft since his first book, I can only imagine how awful the first one is. This novel is a big fat no for me. And if you're a discerning reader, it should be a big fat no for you too. In the incapable hands of the so-called author, it goes to seed after 12 pages. In fact, I feel embarrassed for him having punted his book everywhere, clearly not realizing how awful it is. I saw another reader on this page bill it as contemporary literary thriller. It may have been the author tooting his own horn again, as he's been known to do so. I, however, would bill it as contemporary literary drivel. So thanks for the recommendation, but here's a recommendation of my own. Don't waste your time on this car crash of a novel. Give up your day job, Shields. The world needs trees more than it needs your writing. Whoa, she was harsh, hey? Like, I wouldn't leave a review like that. It's excessive. Okay, so before he responds, Harry Shields, he sends Norma a DM demanding that she delete the post, and she refuses to because she says that although it's harsh, Edna is still reviewing the book, and that's what the group is for. So Harry then becomes a bit threatening, and Norma tells him not to respond to Edna's review and to just let it blow over. So authors are always told not to engage with reviewers, whether it's a positive review or a negative one. But I imagine that this obviously leans more towards the negative reviews because you could say something that could be misinterpreted and then things just go to hell. So Harry Shields was not one of those prudent authors, and he responded. After all, he has the right to defend himself. Where have we heard that before? This is what he writes. As a new post, by the way, right? Not even as a comment on Edna's. He's really upset. So Harry Shields writes, to @Edna Moulton. As the author of the novel you took it upon yourself to eviscerate, I wanted to respond to your review, if we could call it that. To be honest, it was in fact a violent hatchet job. I know everyone says authors shouldn't respond to reviews of their books, but that doesn't seem fair. Politicians get whole debates in which to respond to their opponents and detractors. Comedians get to respond to hecklers. So why shouldn't a review also be an opportunity for open discussion, as opposed to a one-way street of abusive, ignorant opinion? Firstly, I suspect you've never actually read my book, Once Upon a Tuesday, Victory Books. If you had, your review might have been more positive, more balanced, more reflective, and more tempered and nuanced. I say this as my novel has garnered dozens of previous reviews, and none have ever had anything quite so dramatically negative to say. I can't speak to the motivation behind your attack, which feels pointed and personal, and smacks of more than simple opinion, and is more of a simpleton's opinion. Please don't take this the wrong way. I am not ageist. However, I don't believe you're the audience for this book, my dear. It's a younger person's take on modern London and the politics of the day, and your profile appears to be that of an older reader. To my mind, it simply isn't the kind of book you should be reading or reviewing. I'm sure there are plenty of cozy murder mysteries that would better appeal to your sensibilities. Lastly, a question to the other reviewers here. Do we really believe ugly reviews like this help anyone? How would you feel if you put your heart on a page and a person who had never so much as written a pamphlet had a million idiotic, egregious, untruthful, and inelegant opinions on it? I think you should all call her out on it. This reviewer deserves to be cancelled. By all means, tell us what you're reading, but perhaps leave the critical thinking and critical reviewing to professionals, such as published authors, who are clearly better equipped for the job. So this, of course, the comment section then just explodes, right? He made an interesting point though, do we as readers, not published authors or professional viewers, I don't know what makes you different though, to be honest, but just the general reading public, do we have the right to review a book with any kind of conviction? My opinion is yes, because authors write for the masses, they write for public consumption. So I think our opinions should matter to them, whether it's positive or negative. Like, a critic can rave about your book, but if the public hates it, you're not making any money off of it. Unless that's secondary to you, like you're writing for an award or something like that, and you're not too concerned about how the public receives your book, but more critical opinion of it. But Harry doesn't seem to be the kind of author who doesn't want to make money off his books. So I think, and I don't think that his books require critical thinking either. I mean, like crime thrillers, I'm not a fan of them. In my opinion, if you've read one, you've read all. Oh, negative opinion, don't engage. So this causes like a snowball of back and forth comments, right? And increasing aggression also from Harry. And he goes as far to say that what Edna did was hate speech, and it's obvious that the only kind of review he will accept is a positive one, and anyone who leaves anything other than that is incompetent, and they wouldn't know a good book if it hit them in the face. So the readers then decide to all flood his Goodreads with 1-star reviews, which is really bad, hey? Like, if I search for an author on Goodreads and I see 1-star ratings, I'm not reading those books. I'm not even going to bother to read the reviews. I'm just going to look for someone else. So Goodreads is like a very influential app, and this is when his downward spiral really begins. So he calls his friend to check his Goodreads, right? And she confirms that it's really bad. And then he starts calling his publisher obsessively, like he calls it 21 times in 11 and a half hours. And she doesn't answer any of his calls, right? So he's trying to tell her about what happened and that they need to now do something about it. And he wants to respond to a review on Goodreads that says, I wouldn't even recommend this book to someone I detested. And Goodreads advises Harry not to respond to the comment. He probably shouldn't comment. Commenting was what had gotten him into this position in the first place. There was no winning for authors. If you cared too much when you were reviewed, you looked like an oversensitive narcissist. But what was he supposed to do? Just stand by and let thousands of strangers who, judging by his sales figures, were unlikely to have even read his book, slander him and his work? In his heart, Harry knew he should step away from it all and focus on something else. But he was so hurt and furious that he couldn't focus on any one thought for more than a few seconds. Harry had a thought. In the same way that he believed that people should have to pass a test before they were allowed to have children, perhaps readers should have to do the same before they were allowed to review a book. Now that made sense. That would stop uneducated fools like this trashing important books like his. He'd leave a comment sharing his brainwave with all of those stupid, spiteful reviewers. They'd asked for it. Oh, Harry, okay. I agree with him about passing a test before having children, though, like some people could do with being vetted before they could become parents. As I mentioned, though, Harry's up for this literary award, and finally the night comes along. He and his wife, Victoria, who's a surgeon, by the way, dress up and they head out to the function, and Harry's convinced that he's going to win, hey? Like, even in spite of everything that's been going on now, People in the literary world have, like, of course, heard about what's been happening with him. And I think that after all of this, he's silly to think that he'd still win, but ever the optimist, our Harry. He has effectively at this point been cancelled, even if he doesn't realize it yet. And he tries to pass off this whole debacle as a publicity stunt to another author, who tells him that's a very strange idea and that he should ask for his money back because getting cancelled is not the best way to sell books. And he tells him that he, Harry, has been quite the topic of conversation amongst the literati. And when the MC announces Harry's category, he's convinced that he's going to win, and this is how it goes. He sat up straighter and pasted his practiced pleasant smile on his face for when the cameras would land on him. Harry, Priscilla Holmesworthy announced, I knew it! Harry whooped, bursting out of his seat, punching the air with his fist. There was a smattering of surprised applause as he bent down to give Victoria a quick peck on the cheek, then bounded up to the stage as the spotlight found him, which was when Priscilla cleared her throat and continued. The winner is Harriet Blumenthal. Harriet, come up and get your Golden Page Award. This is just my opinion, but I feel like Priscilla did that on purpose. It really felt like it. Like, I don't know, maybe she really was clearing her throat, but it felt deliberate, but so awkward. It all ends with Harry like screaming insults at another author in his frustration, and everything was caught on camera and then uploaded to YouTube. So like, if there was any confusion of his being cancelled before this, there certainly isn't any now. So just a quick segue into cancel culture. What is cancel culture? It's basically when someone, usually a celebrity or a public figure, is publicly called out, criticized, or boycotted because they've said or done something that's considered harmful or offensive. So it generally starts online. The goal of cancel culture is accountability, right? But it can also get really harsh really fast, especially when it's based on incomplete information or old content that's now been taken out of context. So the consequences can be quite serious. People can lose work, they can lose endorsements, publishing deals, public support. And sometimes it feels like people don't really get the chance to explain or to grow or just be wrong in public without it being career ending. And obviously people in the limelight or in the spotlight have more to lose than, just someone who's part of the general public. So some celebrities who've been cancelled include Kanye West, Kevin Hart, because of old offensive tweets that he made. And he apologized at the time, and then people now want him to apologize again. And he refused to apologize again. I don't blame him. It's like somebody goes into his history on whatever platform and they find something that he said maybe 10 or 15 years ago. He's apologized. Now you want him to apologize again. That doesn't feel reasonable. And then, of course, there's Will Smith, right, for that infamous Oscar slap. Amongst authors, though, the most famous author who's been cancelled recently is probably J.K. Rowling. So whether you agree with her or not, there's a very interesting podcast that was made interviewing her about her side of the story called The Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling. It's on Spotify and it's really worth a listen if you're curious. Roald Dahl was also cancelled recently, even though he's long gone. I mean, I don't even understand the point of cancelling him. He's dead. I don't really agree with him being cancelled, but if you want to know why he's being cancelled, you can go and look it up. And then there's also Neil Gaiman, who's recently faced like very serious allegations of sexual abuse against several women. But here's the thing, right? Some of these people, in spite of being cancelled, are still very successful. Like, for example, J.K. Rowling is still making money and a new Harry Potter series is coming out soon. So cancellation doesn't always mean the end of your career, but it definitely leaves a mark on your career. In South Africa, cancel culture isn't as big as it is in the US or the UK, but it is growing now, especially amongst younger people on social media. So my issue with cancel culture is that sometimes it feels like a knee-jerk reaction, and you don't always have the full story before someone's reputation is destroyed. And I think that people should be held accountable for the things they say and do. But we also need space for honest mistakes and to allow people to grow, We should always be willing to hear someone out, especially if we disagree with them. You don't have to change your mind after you've heard their side of things, but at least we understand a little more than we did before. And that is where the real dialogue happens. So back to the story, right? Harry Shields now has his He's one trending hashtag on X. Hashtag 1-star Harry. Oh my word, it's brilliant. It's so shame. His unpublished novel even has 1-star reviews, right? I've seen people giving unpublished books like 5-star reviews before, like Patrick Rothfuss's yet to be published Doors of Stone. He even commented saying that he thinks it's silly to do this, and I agree with him. But Patrick, just publish the book already. Someone posted the video of Harry imploding at the award ceremony, right, on the GBAS page. And they call for another wave of 1-star reviews on Harry's Goodreads, so things are getting worse. Journalists are now reaching out to him, and shockingly, he's actually able to ignore them, except one, though, because she says that she wants to tell his side of the story. Oh, Harry. So he's now legit obsessed, right, with the situation. It's all he thinks about, it's all he talks about, and his friends and his wife are becoming a bit tired of him. So he starts talking about getting writer's revenge on Edna Moulton, right? So this means that he's going to write her into a book, and he's going to use her real name, and then he's going to kill her off. He's going to use her real name because then she knows that she's the one being killed. Otherwise, what's the point, right? First, I'm going to have her nemesis, the famous author, play some pranks on her, like tracking down her email address and signing her up for dozens of sales newsletters every day and spam for weird products. And then the famous author character is going to opt her telephone number in with as many call centers as possible. And he's going to have a pizza delivered to her house every single day for 6 months with blue cheese and anchovies on all of them, Harry said triumphantly. And then right at the end, maybe he'll kill her with a blunt machete. I don't know if that is terrifying or hilarious. So the journalist Harry spoke to has published her story now in the Times, no less, and she did not defend him the way he thought she was going to. In fact, she quoted him as saying that he would do it again and again. So just a quick break from the Harry insanity. This particular thread on the GBAS page really made me laugh. Dick Lewis. Wow, just wow, you guys. I literally just turned the last page of the classic novel Breakfast at Tiffany's by Truman Capote. I loved every second of it. I'm tempted to say it's the best book I've read this year. I'm on a classic novel reading kick right now. I believe they broaden one's horizons. What a romantic ending when Holly and the writer end up together. Woof, this is one novel I will keep on my shelves to read again and again. What classic novel do you suggest I read next? Comments. Ruth Bernstein. Spoiler alert, Jessie Burt. Yes, thanks for ruining the end for the rest of us. Noel Coates. Do you mean which you should read next or watch next? At Dick Lewis. Philip Flanders. Are you sure you read the book? At Dick Lewis? Dick Lewis. Just finished it after 3 straight days reading it. At Philip Flanders. Couldn't put it down. Philip Flanders. The reason I ask is because in the book Breakfast at Tiffany's by Truman Capote, the writer never sees Holly again. But in the movie Breakfast at Tiffany's, directed by Blake Edwards, it has a different ending. I think perhaps you might be lying to make friends. Lauren van Veerk. Orkies. Noel Coates. You asked what book to read next, Dick Lewis. How about the classic bestseller by Pierre Bayard, How to Talk About Books You Haven't Read? Geneva Fulverton. Well, that's embarrassing. But it does lead to an interesting conversation. Anyone else on the group, other than high school students who have a set work exam the next day on a book they haven't read, pretend they'd read a book when they hadn't, or when they'd only seen the movie, in a vain attempt to try to sound intelligent? Dick Lewis has left the group. That was so funny. But it was savage. People are really mean, hey. I mean, I'd like to think that if I came across that post, I would honestly just laugh and move on. I read Breakfast at Tiffany's a couple of years ago, and I really enjoyed it. It's a short little story. It's very sweet. I haven't seen the movie. Oh my goodness. Okay, so Harry meets a cop friend of his, right, who's a consultant for authors on crime novels. So I don't actually know if he is a friend of Harry's, because he's the friend that you have to pay before they show up for the coffee, right? And then Harry starts in on him about finding someone's physical address from their IP address. It was a really, really pathetic, guys. I mean, guys saw right through it. So as far as I know, with the right tech, you can definitely get someone's IP address off their Facebook page or from a messenger chat. But an IP address may not give you an exact physical address down to the precise building, not without a bit more information from the service provider who issued that IP address, Dion said. So could you help me find her address then? Maybe subpoena the information from the service provider? Harry, mate, I'm starting to get the feeling that this isn't as hypothetical a fictional situation as you've made out. Are you sure you're doing research for a new novel and this isn't something a bit more personal? Harry looked at Leon, who was watching him closely, first examining his face, then taking in his bouncing knee. You're not thinking of doing anything stupid, are you, Harry, mate? Harry held his gaze, his eye twitching. Because if you are, as a police officer, I have to advise you to step away from whatever this is, mate. You don't want to be a bad headline, all right? Only a good headline, like winning a Booker. So, Leon, what you're saying is I'm a character, Barry, it was? Said Leon. That's it, Barry, my character. Barry could, if he needed to, find someone's location or at least general vicinity of their Facebook profile. There's not going to be any credit for me in the back of a book for this one, is there, Harry? The truth, Harry said, that is my preferred mode of transport, yes. No, probably not, Harry admitted. No thanks in the acknowledgements, Leon asked. Nope. And no possibility of becoming the cop consultant on set when the book finally gets turned into a series or movie? Highly, highly unlikely. We wouldn't by any chance be doing anything illegal here, would we, Harry? I just want to see what she looks like, Leon, that's all. Check her out. At most I might approach her, but all completely innocent and friendly. Just a chat, nothing sinister, I swear. You have my word, Harry said. I just need her address from you, urgently. Harry, I'm a full-time cop who consults part-time on books and shows on the telly. I'm not a private detective. I'll pay you as much as you want, Harry said, his voice an octave higher. All right, I'm calling it, mate. You should get help, Leon said, gathering his keys and Ray-Bans off the table. I thought I was, from you, Harry said. Not that kind of help, mate, Leon stood. Harry, you know I'm here for you when you get going on the writing and are ready to talk about hypothetical cop procedures for your book. On receipt of PayPal confirmation, Harry mumbled. So things are getting real now, hey? That's it. You've got it. You know where to find me. Thanks for the matcha, mate, Leon said, striding out of the restaurant. Harry sighed. If Leon wasn't going to help him get the IP address, he would have to help himself. He'd written a private detective character before. Surely being one in real life wasn't that different. Harry drained his coffee, ordered another one, then logged into the Good Book Appreciation Society on his mobile. He searched for all posts and comments made by Edna Moulton on the page, then started to pick through them to see if he'd missed any clues. She'd created very few posts over the years, mostly commenting on other people's posts, politely thanking them for their reviews, and making notes of titles that interested her or ones she'd already read and enjoyed. Harry carried on scrolling. And then, after about 20 minutes, there it was, in a post Edna Moulton had commented on 3 years earlier, about people scribbling notes in the margins of library books. Maybe his luck was starting to turn. In which direction, I still don't know. But Harry discovers the area in which Edna lives, and we go on a stakeout. So I don't really know what his end game is, right? Like, when he sees her, like, what does he want to do? And I don't think he knows either. So before we get there, though, Harry's agent finally calls him back, and she gives him all kinds of shit about his behavior, right? And he at least has the decency here to be contrite, because he's convinced that he's the real victim in all of this. And then they start talking about the manuscript that he'd sent her. He's written it in first-person POV, which can apparently be difficult to maintain and keep interesting. And I can see how that would happen, right? But more so, Harry has chosen his first-person POV to be that of a black woman. Harry Shields is not a black woman. So his agent tells him to change it, and then they can look at the next step amidst all of the chaos that he has caused, right? And this then raises another interesting question. So from the book, Bernard Phillips. Bernard Phillips, is that Harry's other alter ego? I feel like it is, okay, but I can't remember now because, like I said, he's got more than one. I think Bernard Phillips is the other one, but okay. Hello, book friends, me again, Bernard Phillips from Bridgeport, Connecticut. I was recently at a literary festival at a panel where Gordon Matthiasson was being interviewed about his best-selling new novel. One of the questions someone asked was whether he felt comfortable writing from a middle-aged woman's perspective, since he is quite obviously not, in fact, a middle-aged woman. Matthiasson answered, "Does that mean I can't ever write a novel about a serial killer since I'm not actually a serial killer?" It got me thinking. Has oversensitive woke culture pushed us to the point that writers are no longer allowed to write characters that are not in their lived experience? Comments. Chris Scott. If you ask me, the world is taking all of this woke stuff too far. Women are always whining about everything. Write whatever you want, and if you don't like what's been written or who has chosen to write it, there is a very simple solution. Don't read it. Now, go get me a beer. Frida Kruger has reported this comment. Thomas Dooley. I'm a published author of 5 novels, all available on Amazon, and in my view, the trick is research. If you do your research properly, really inhabit your characters, and write them properly, then you can write from any perspective. Zabit123. I instantly got 7,000 new followers the second I followed this account. You too can have the same big influencer results. Frida Kruger has reported this comment. Karen Granger. Isn't that cultural appropriation though? Hashtag words matter. Ruth Bernstein. I'm tired of white men's opinions. I've stopped buying books written by white men altogether. The world would be a better place if they took up less space and stayed in their lane. I'm instantly turned off when white men try to write outside of their lived experience. Chris Colt. So white men can't write about women or black people, but women or people of color can write about anyone and anything they want? How is that fair? Brian Wilder. I agree. And it's not just that we're allowed to write. It's not just what we're allowed to write about that's being policed. Face it, a middle-aged, straight white guy just can't get a publishing deal these days, no matter how hard he tries or how well he writes. It's very unfair. Avukile Chinguita. There you go, from your place of patriarchal privilege, moaning that something isn't fair after being on the back foot for 3.5 seconds. Please, white guys, try being an enslaved minority for centuries. Then you can have an opinion on what's actually unfair. Bernard Phillips. Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert springs to mind. Male author, female first-person POV. A much-read, much-lauded classic. Shanti Kumar, at Bernard Phillips. That was written in 1856. Are we really using it as a benchmark in the 21st century? When it comes to current fiction, I start off suspicious and wary when a white male author tries to pull off a female voice, particularly one outside of their race. This is an intriguing premise, right? I don't think that a white male should be writing the POV of a black woman because he has no idea what a black woman's POV would be. Even if he did his research, as some say, I still feel that you would rather assist a black woman in telling her own POV in her own words rather than you, a white male, doing it for her. So J.K. Rowling, for example, has written crime novels under the pseudonym Robert Galbraith, but it works for her, right? She writes a POV of a white male and a white female, which I don't think is much of a stretch. Harper Lee wrote from the POV of Scout Finch, who's a young girl. Gillian Flynn goes between male and female POVs. Leo Tolstoy wrote Anna Karenina, a classic. But all of these authors have written characters of the same race as themselves. Arthur Golden wrote Memoirs of a Geisha, a white American man writing from the POV of a Japanese sex worker. I really liked this book, I won't lie. I enjoyed it. I watched the movie as well, and I enjoyed that too. I was very young. Not very young. I shouldn't be too young and read that book. But I was young when I read it. I think I was in my 20s, my early 20s. And so I was like relatively young when I read it. And it was also before everyone became woke. But as I understand it, generally speaking, the book was very popular. But the geisha that who he interviewed for the book, apparently sued him afterwards for defamation and misrepresentation. So obviously the issue with writing from POVs other than your own is that you risk stereotyping groups of people and then also being insensitive to their lived experiences. And then, of course, you're profiting off it as well, right? So even though many people don't get it right, some do actually. So Madeline Miller, for example, wrote The Song of Achilles, and she was praised for her sensitivity for her male POV. So I think, though, that you have to be very, very careful when writing from a POV other than your own. And you have to really immerse yourself in the psychology of that group of people or person and make sure that you're not shallow in your depiction of them. Because even people within a group will also have different lived experiences, right? And I don't think that it's something that just anyone can do. And given what we know about Harry Shields, I don't think that he's capable of such levels of empathy. So we go off with Harry on his stakeout of Edna Moulton, right? And he's really bad at stakeouts. He has this wheelie bag which bumps along because the streets are all cobble. And he has a little notebook where he writes down his observations, and he's taken a novel with him as well so that he can be inconspicuous. But the novel is really good, and he ends up distracted by it. So when he does see her though, right, Edna is an elderly woman and she goes into a police station, which like freaks him out completely because he thinks that she knows that someone is watching her. And then she goes to the bank, and then she goes to the library, and then she goes home. So he doesn't approach her or anything, like, thank goodness. And then the next day, the news comes out that Edna Moulton was the victim of a hit and run, and she's in the hospital unconscious. So in addition to interviewing Norma, the police also questioned Harry. He didn't do it, by the way. He doesn't have a car and he doesn't have a driver's license either. But things have gotten really bad for him. He's been asked to step down from the author panel for the London Book Festival, and this really guts him. And it's all because he's been cancelled. Nobody wants to be associated with him because they're worried about the reactions of their audiences and the fact that they then may be cancelled as well. So here comes the kicker, right? Edna Moulton posts another scathing review, this time of Harry's first book, on the GBAS page. But at the time that the review is posted, Edna is in a coma in the hospital. Intriguing. Someone is pretending to be her. So when Harry sees this, he obviously goes bananas, but he's also relieved because he figures that now there may be another suspect in her hit and run. Except the impersonator can't be a suspect because they obviously don't know that Edna is in the hospital. Oh, Harry, you're a crime writer, you know. But he's trying to figure out who he could be, impersonating an 80-year-old woman and destroying his reputation online. So Edna recovers, like she's fine. And Harry eventually finds out who's been impersonating her, Edna. I also figured it out. I'm not going to tell you who it was because ultimately that is not the point of this book. It's not a whodunit. It doesn't matter. The things from this book that you can think about, like things that you should take from this book. Do you think that Harry deserved to be cancelled? Like, the point of the story for me are the events that led to Harry being cancelled and the consequences of him being cancelled. So what started as a single negative, albeit harsh, review escalated into aggression and insults, and ultimately it almost destroyed Harry's career. He had a mental breakdown, like I don't think you can deny it. And it can happen so easily, and things get so messy when we stop seeing each other as people, but we see each other as targets on social media. Because social media can be a great place for conversation, as we all know, but it can also be really brutal. So next time we read a post that rubs us the wrong way, maybe just take a moment, get the full story, because shouting someone down is easy. Listening, even when we don't agree, that's where the real work is, yeah. So, have you read this book? What do you think? What do you think of cancel culture? Should social media have the power to tear people down and destroy their careers? How can we hold ourselves accountable? I'd also just like to say thank you to Exclusive Books for giving me this book to read and review. If it sounds like something that you'd enjoy, it is available at all Exclusive Books as part of their homebrew range. So until next time, this is me, your host Rizia, on the Books and Mortar podcast, where we talk about the books that build us. Goodbye.